probably one of the most valuable experiences I've had, like in terms of exercising all of the things that
Right.
might be required of a musician or artist, especially now in uh, this new environment where we're all sort of like having to be really self sufficient.
Hello, and welcome to Crushing Classical, redefining a thriving classical music career. On today's episode, I had a conversation with Jessie Montgomery, violinist, member of the Catalyst Quartet, composer, and New Yorker. Back when I interviewed Black Violin, Kev Marcus recommended that I check out her music. As someone who is married to a violinist and has heard a ton of string quartet music and violin music, when I checked out her music and loved it, I had to have her on the show. Jessie told me she never intended on trying to get into an orchestra and had always known she wanted to be a chamber musician. Early on, she was interested in composing and started as a student writing for the band in her junior high. She has had a very interesting career so far between composing, performing, and life in a string quartet and all that they do. It was great to hear about her version of the career that she designed. But before we get started, I want to thank Fix Music for providing the hosting for the show. When you're looking for high-quality sheet music at affordable prices, look no further than fixmusic.com. They have a clean, attractive website, and they even went so far as to have a YouTube video of a performance of the music you want so that you can hear the piece before you buy it. I've never seen that before when buying music. They currently have a great selection of high-quality string, piano, and chamber music repertoire, and they are constantly adding to their collection. Keep in mind, if you do play another instrument other than strings or piano, you can get in touch with them through their website, and they'll do their best to get the music to you. And just for Crushing Classical listeners, if you order now, you can use the code CRUSH for 10% off your order. Check them out at fixmusic.com. That's FICKS music.com. So Crushing Classical is all about creating your classical music career. In my original interview series, I interview musicians who are currently creating unique and interesting careers outside the traditional job path. And in addition to the original series, we have two other series on the podcast. The Fireside Chats, where my Crushing Classical partner, former musician and entrepreneur Eileen Gordon, and I are recording the mind-blowing conversations we have regularly and have been having for over a year now. We talk about all things money, career strategy, what it takes to create a career you love, and so much more. And sometimes we have special guests on there. You are going to love this series. Each Sunday, there's a new episode available for you. We also have the Hot Seat episodes coming out every 2 weeks on Fridays. Tune in to hear musicians who want to explore income streams in a hot seat business coaching situation with Eileen and hear them explore ways to turn their unique skills and abilities into an income stream. If you're interested in getting on one of these episodes, send me a private message on my Facebook page, facebook.com/crushingclassical, or direct message me on Instagram. And don't forget to follow Crushing Classical on Instagram and on Facebook at facebook.com/crushingclassical for updates on new episode releases and posts about creating a career you love in classical music. Let's get started. Hey, Jessie, how are you?
Hi, Tracy. I'm good. How are you doing?
Great. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here.
So you are a violinist and a composer. Describe yourself to me in one sentence.
Well, I am a New York-based composer and violinist, and I have managed to create a regular performing and composing career for myself, living here and still based in New York at this point.
That's so great because you grew up in New York, right?
That's right. Yeah. New Yorkers, we tend not to, sometimes we never leave. So I don't know. I fear I may be becoming one of those people, but.
Well, there's something cool about a musician who knows where she wants to live and, sticks to that because so often, and I know this was the case for myself, like I just thought, oh, well, I have to go anywhere. I have to go where the job is, and
Mhm.
so it's always inspiring to me to meet somebody who's like, hey, this is where I live. This is where I'm from. This is who I am. And
Yeah.
I'm not leaving. So,
Well, yeah, New York has that effect on people, especially like I was saying, us natives, we tend to stick around. So
yeah. So tell me more about your childhood. Because I was watching a YouTube and I saw some things and I was like, that your influences from your parents and just your surroundings were so cool. So tell me more about that.
sure, yeah, it's definitely a sort of unique situation. My parents are both artists. My dad, he grew up in California in Buffalo, and he retreated uh, to New York in the '70s, like a lot of people who were artists. And New York at that time was an affordable and exciting place for an artist. Now I think it's a much more challenging lifestyle
Yeah.
and to make a living here. But back then, yeah, my dad moved in the '70s, and my mom in the '60s. She's an actress. She moved to study at NYU in the '60s. So they both. My mom is an actor, playwright, with a sort of a basis in kind of political theater, and my dad is a self-taught musician, and he spent for most of my childhood. He ran actually all the way up until I was about until 2008. So from 1985 to 2008, he ran a music studio um, called Context Studios, and it ended up becoming like a real hub for downtown musicians and for jazz musicians, rock band, classical, a new wave of classical, like this new classical kind of downtown quote unquote scene was really ramped up in his big performance space there. He ran a series every year that was like the like new music series for that part of the town. Um, and yeah, so I grew up in that, like in and out, like wandering through that studio for all of my childhood, surrounded by all kinds of musicians and actors and artists and stuff, and so it was really really a strange and very special situation. And
Yeah.
but I yeah, and then I went to music school. I ended up even with all those different influences and stuff around me, I went down a pretty traditional path as far as violin. Ended up I went to the Third Street Music School Settlement, which was just a few blocks from my house, um, and started violin at 4 with a really fabulous teacher named Alice Kanak, who's still teaching actually in Rochester, New York. She has her own school now, and yeah, so I started, Suzuki training alongside all this other wacky stuff that was going on, and managed to sort of live in this dual kind of path or dual kind of seemingly opposing, like areas of music, but
Yeah.
they all came together at some point, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Uh,
Yeah. So you went the traditional path and then but you always like the idea of composing? When did you start composing?
Yeah, so I started composing when I was young. Also, I was in junior high school when I started composing, and it was it came. I was very lucky to have a teacher. My first violin teacher was working on a method of teaching creative, like it's called the creative ability development method, and it's teaching kids how to improvise and kind of find their own musical voice through these like really planned, really thought out, carefully thought out exercises, like their improvisation exercises. And I did this work with her. She started us, just at the same time, like when I was like 6 or something. She's had kids starting really young, and then like all the way through high school. And so directly out of that, I really think that was like a feeder into, I took up an interest in composition when it was, presented to me as an option. I was like 11, of course. Had never written anything down, written any of my improvisations down, and I just learned, I learned how to write down my ideas, and yeah, that's when it started. I think the first piece I ever wrote was like a little piano trio, but after that, I think I wrote for my junior high school concert band when I was 12. That went over, really strangely, but I wasn't like suddenly the cool kid in school. Let's just put it that way. But I did enjoy the process of writing for my.
That doesn't make you cool, writing for your
No,
band.
doesn't.
That's funny. But
Yeah,
that's amazing. So you started so young and that program sounds incredible. Did you say that your teacher developed that
yeah, yeah.
program?
So my teacher, yeah, she developed this method of teaching improvisation and sort of getting students to come up with their own little short pieces with improvisation like guidelines, like certain like pick a certain key or certain rhythmic parameters, and um, certain kinds of like trading back and forth with other players. There were always group exercises.
I'm so
Um,
fascinated by that because I feel like that's really what's lacking in music education,
yeah,
just in
yeah.
general.
She's like she's been doing it now for 30 years, and the method is really taking off. She does workshops throughout the country and in Canada, and yeah, so I feel like more teachers are catching on.
And she trains other teachers to do the method.
Other teachers, yes, yep, she'll train other teachers, and she does demonstrations with her students and everything like that.
Okay. And do you teach that?
So I have taught it, and I do when I do if I ever do like a visiting residency that's where I have multiple visits, I'll incorporate some of the creative ability development method into our workshops, and the kids always love it, and it's like just a really great way to get them to relax and enjoy being creative. And I used to teach. Right after my undergrad, I taught at a program in Providence called Community Music Works, which is just like one of the best organizations in the country, as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
Music education and social justice and community development they do all of that, and they do all of that really well. Um,
Awesome.
and as a part of that program, they have a regular music training kind of curriculum. And I did bring I instituted actually some classes there that they've continued since I left, that use CAD. It's called CAD. We call it CAD. Creative Ability Development is a mouthful. So um, CAD. Yeah. So I did incorporate some classes there, and they continue to maintain those courses. So yeah, it's just a really great tool to have.
That's great. So now, why don't you tell me more about your career? Because it sounds like there's so much to it, and I want to hear more about all the different facets of what you do, like all together in
Sure.
your career.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, like I was saying, I went down a traditional training with my as a violinist. Composing happened along the way, and as I finished high school, I went into Juilliard for my undergrad in violin performance, and I sort of stopped composing at that time because I think I had plenty to do, trying to get better at violin and keep up with my coursework there at Juilliard and my classes and ensembles, etc. And so I finished my undergrad, but about around my senior year, I started picking up composing again. I reconnected with clarinetist Derek Bermel. Do you know Derek?
No.
He's a wonderful. An extremely well. He's a very well known composer, but also really awesome guy, and he's actually known me since I was in high school. Um, he's the artistic director at the American Composers Orchestra here in New York,
Okay.
and that's his current position. But he's a clarinetist, and he has a really strong background in jazz arranging and composition and performance, and also classical performance on clarinet. He's really a virtuoso clarinetist,
Cool.
and so he he actually knew my dad because of like that scene, that whole music scene and stuff. That my dad's a clarinetist and a saxophonist, so they kind of like connected on that, I think.
Uh-huh.
And Derek knew me when I was in high school. He knew I was like studying music and stuff. And so when I was a senior in college, I reconnected with him, and he introduced me to a course that he was giving called Making Score, which was just it was like like a sort of once a week course for young composers to write and have their pieces performed, um, and that sort of like got me back on the train of composing again, and sort of more like just reignited that passion and that interest. Um, and as I was mentioning, right after my undergrad, I went to Providence to teach at Community Music Works. Um, and that was that was my first go at playing in a string quartet. As part of that job, it was a combination of a performing ensemble, which was the Providence String Quartet, and this organization, Community Music Works, where we all had administrative responsibilities within the organization as well. So it was this just very unique experience of like having a regular performing. We played like 30 concerts a year and rehearsed, 3 to 4 times a week. It was a very rigorous in terms of performance, and then as well having like learning about how to run an organization. That was
Cool.
like a grassroots organization. So it was just like probably one of the most valuable experiences I've had, like in terms of exercising all of the things that
Right.
might be required of a musician or artist, especially now in uh, this new environment where we're all sort of like having to be really self sufficient. It's
Yeah, well, I that's what I think too, and so that's
uh, it's
that's why I love your take on it and your sharing about this, because so many times people don't really realize that we're in that environment now, that you have to be more self-sufficient, you
right.
know?
You can't just be one thing. You have to
Yeah,
learn how to organize yourself and your colleagues and write grants and understand how the whole system works. And but
right. So do you think that people mostly are slow to catch up to that realization right
I
now?
think in general, I mean, people certainly like when I was coming up, that wasn't even discussed. Now, and and we sort of I was lucky enough to be in a situation where I was learning that stuff like at the right time.
Yeah.
Um, However, I think now I actually, in fact, a colleague of mine, her name is Amanda Gukin. She's a cellist in the Public Quartet, which is another string quartet that I was a member of at one point. And Amanda is teaching at Purchase. She's teaching a class. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's a course on entrepreneurship as an artist. There are courses at Manus School of Music, that also are focused on, developing, teaching young artists about all of this stuff about being an entrepreneur and having like knowing that you're gonna be having to find a path or create a path for yourself
Right.
that
So it's starting to become more
I
talked
think
about.
it's I feel like the institutions are paying attention, and I think hopefully this newer generation is going to be really interesting. What happens in the next 10 years or so with uh, with that kind of training added into conservatory training. So um, yeah, so I mean, I think it's changing. I think people are becoming more aware of that fact. Um,
Yeah. I'm really appreciative of that, and the fact that you were able, for you, that was great that you were exposed to that program right away, that you could see the holistic, um, way of building something like your ensemble and all the, the grant writing like you'd mentioned and stuff.
Right.
So that's really good. And then it looks like you do a lot of educational stuff within your career too.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And that's a lot of that was happening while I was in Providence in terms of like regular, my regular sort of work schedule.
Uh-huh.
We did a lot of teaching there, or it was a regular teaching schedule. Um, and, but I've since, so, after I left Providence, I went to NYU for film scoring. I came back to New York.
Mm.
I was like, I'm going to go for this composer thing. And I came back to New York, and while I was at NYU, I met Amanda Gukin, who I just mentioned, cellist, and we formed Public Quartet. And when we were in Public Quartet, we had to figure out what. That was probably the first experience of like really like having to come up with every aspect of the career path and the vision, just from scratch. And that was an incredible experience. And certainly a part of that was we knew we were going to try to incorporate some kind of educational component,
Mhm.
because while it gives you an opportunity to, teaching is just a noble a noble act. And also, I think that among the group, we all had a really teaching, but also it's a great way to establish like sort of mini residencies around concerts and stuff like that. So we figured that out. We figured that was going to be an integral part of what the quartet would do. And I think because of the work I did in Providence, and my experience working with, like I was mentioning, my teacher who taught CAD, who I've recently connected with, actually. Well, I connected with her when I was working on that work in Providence, and we've started a new sort of relationship, which is really great. I mean, she's known me since I was 4 years old, and it's just a special, special thing to
Yeah.
be able to continue to work with her. So I consult with her every now and again about other ways in which I can incorporate CAD into what I'm doing. I worked with Public Quartet and introduced the method to them and introduced them to Alice as well. And so, yeah, it's just been sort of a running theme. And yeah, and so like if I go and do a workshop, like I was saying, I did a residency in Albany with the Albany Symphony last year, and I did about a 3 or 4 month project where I taught some elementary school kids. I used CAD with them, and we created a little piece, a really like 10-minute oratorio together, like an improvised
Mhm.
oratorio. It was really, really fun. I love teaching. I really do think that, I feel so strongly. I'm passionate about community education. I feel like if it hadn't been for music education, I wouldn't have. I don't know what I would have done. I know. I mean, my parents probably would have figured something out. I don't know because they're both artists, but I happened to get, you know, into this program that is, scholarship based. It's a tuition based, but I think I was, a scholarship based, or whatever, student, like most of the time. I mean, they had, it was an
Uh-huh.
assisted program, and I just feel like that kind of opportunity is what we need, and I feel like it's really the basis. That's where the groundwork happens for creating like good people,
Yeah.
like good citizens, and thought people that like exercise their own opinions. And um, I just yeah, I'm really just a strong believer in the value of music education or any
Right.
arts education.
I think it's so
So
valuable as well.
mhm.
And what I really love hearing you talk about it is how passionate you are about it, and that's so important when you're building a career to be really in love with what you're doing. And on the same token, there's always the or not, maybe not the same token, because you are passionate and you want to create and you want to do things that are meaningful and valuable, and at the same time you also have to make an income, right?
That's
So
right.
I think that this
Yeah.
is why musicians, and I'm guilty of it. In fact, this is the very first podcast where I'm asking directly the guest about money, because as a
Yeah.
musician myself too, we want to be like, oh, we do it because we love it, and I just love music, and teaching is a noble thing. You're right.
Yeah.
And musicians need to make money. So let's talk about that for a second. When you first started, was it really hard? How hard was it to generate income?
Well, you know what's funny?
Hmm.
Things go up and down.
Yeah.
Really, right? So for this in this career, nothing is for certain. I was very lucky right after my undergrad when I went to Providence to Community Music Works. That was an already established organization at that point. They were young, but they had, it was a salaried position, small, albeit, it wasn't that, it was livable. It was Providence. It was totally like right
Mhm.
for where I was. It was a, excellent situation. Um, and I was lucky to have that situation for as long as I had, which was 5 years until I decided to come to New York. And I think that's when you decide to move to New York is when you really
Yeah.
living on the edge. Yeah. So I had, I came to New York and I was in school, which helped. But the generating income, it's a tough one. As a freelancer in the city, you got to go, you got to do the hustle, get get the gigs, meet the right people, and you're really a lot of the time you're balancing and um, making a living from a combination of
Right.
things. Most of the time, that's the case. I would say
Yeah.
like 100% of the time. I don't know. So performing, it's between performing, teaching, and maybe, if you're lucky, you have some administrative skills and you're sort of getting some, I have a couple friends who every once in a while they'll throw in a temp, take some temp work to balance things out. And
Yeah.
that's no big deal. And, yeah, so it's not it's not, we don't do it for
Right.
the money. That's the thing, because if no one would, I don't know that, anyone would choose this as a financial kind of lifestyle, like this kind of lifestyle of like living,
Right.
kind of on the edge, um, is, it's tough. And, as far as the composing side, composers, well, for me at this stage in my career, my royalties haven't quite started kicking in, so I'm on a commission to
Right.
commission kind of life right now with that, which is, it is what it is. I have enough, I have what I need,
Yeah.
and so, and in a way, that's kind of, I mean, it is. It's like this romantic. There is definitely like this romantic thing of like, well, at least as long as I have my bohemian studio up in the cloisters, um I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be as long as I can maintain that, I'm good to go, and I'm doing my art. And but yeah, no, there's things to think about in the future, planning, family, all that stuff. You know so working towards stability, slowly but
Right.
surely.
Yeah, but it sounds like, especially with the educational focus, like education is great and people value it generally. So you can usually find income in those places. Like, developing those programs sounds incredibly valuable. In fact, I want to talk to you more about it. Just for my daughter to find out how I can get her exposed to that because I just think it's incredible and not really utilized to teach children how to improvise would be incredible. Not only just for them to learn how to write music, but just great for their creativity,
Mhm.
in general.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So, yeah, all of this, a lot of the kids who went through that program are currently, it's not, but a lot of them are
oh
living
wow,
as musicians now, and some of them are super high profile people. So and they all talk about it. They all talk about
oh
that
wow, that's
training as
cool.
a special thing.
So now that
Yeah, so I'd be happy to get in touch with
I'm
Alice
sorry,
at
what
any
did you
point.
just say? Oh
I'd be happy
yeah,
to put you in touch with Alice, and find out if she has any, because sometimes she does have like teachers out in other
yeah, I love it.
practitioners out in other
That's great.
states. So.
So now that you've been at it for a while, you feel like you're making a full-time income that supports your lifestyle basically, or
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, there's some good
uh-huh.
months and some bad
Just like any
months.
freelancer, right?
For sure. Like any freelancer, yeah. I mean, if you just lump me up together with a just basic freelance lifestyle, career, and income strain, that's me. And so, but it's working. Like I said, I've got 2 feet on the ground. I'm
That's good.
head above water. So for now, it's like you never know, but yeah. So and I also, in this career, it's like you really have to stay optimistic. You really just have to say, you know what, maybe it's not good. Maybe this year was tough, but um, I'm gonna keep working. I'm gonna keep
Mhm.
selling my product and making more art, and you know, just try to live.
I think that's good advice.
That's all you can do.
I do. Because yeah, you can't a lot of time, I mean,
Yeah.
as a musician, and people know when they're going into it that it's not really a guarantee anywhere. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not I didn't have um, the, I never had the desire to be in an orchestra. So, even from
Really?
the get go, I was like, not, really? Yeah, I was like, this is going to be really unknown uh, territory. But I think because I grew up with artists, parents, I just, the idea of being an artist and living as an artist was not scary. So I kind of just went with it sort of naturally, and was very fortunate along the way so
Right.
far, so.
In school, did people ever say
Mhm.
to you, "Oh, you don't want to be in an orchestra? What? Like this doesn't compute."
Sort of, yeah. Other musicians, I mean, they would talk about orchestra life like it was like the only
Yeah.
thing in the world. Oh, I've got to get ready for this audition, and these are like 18, 19-year-old kids,
Yeah.
20 years old. Um, and like, yeah, and it's not like it's great. I mean, for those that want it, and have that kind of point of view about, like, lifestyle, and uh there is a value in having stability. I mean, it's a huge thing. If you can get it, it's fantastic, and if that's the lifestyle that you want, then that's great. I'm not like turning my nose
Right,
down at
exactly. Yeah.
anyone who wants to be in an orchestra. Where it just wasn't really on my mind. It's not a. I knew that I wanted to have more
Uh-huh.
control in my music making, um, and so yeah, it just wasn't for me. It wasn't something that I even ever really thought about. I don't even think the idea of taking auditions for orchestras was like a, it just didn't like cross my mind, actually. I always knew I wanted to play chamber music. Actually, I had a really, really awesome experience also at Third Street Music School, community education. Woo! Like, yeah, yeah. They had an awesome chamber music program there, and I just fell in love with that kind of interaction. Just my friends, I would be in groups of friends, or or other kids who I like totally looked up to, was challenged by. and we sort of and had this like very beautiful, intimate music making experience at a young age. I think it just like set me up for wanting to continue that kind of interaction. So, yeah, I've been very fortunate to be able to find my way to a chamber music
That's cool
career.
that you had that clarity at such a young age. Um,
Yeah,
so I'm sure it
yeah,
wasn't,
it's strange.
every time I ask this of my guests, they always have one. So I'm not going to assume that you don't. And the question is, um, I always ask everyone if they've had a moment in their career or life that they were at a crossroads and you chose to switch careers. I call it
Mm.
the fuck this moment. So I was wondering about your fuck this moment.
Right. Well, it's funny you should mention that because I'm currently at a crossroads, or I've actually chosen which which road I'm going to go down after a sort of long journey. I I had two. Let's say I have had two, and they're both
Okay.
they're both very related. They're
Okay.
so I was playing in. I've played in three string quartets in my life. The most recent one is the Catalyst Quartet. I joined the Catalyst Quartet in 2012, and then my composing career started to kind of pick up about 2014, 15, and I that was a fuck this moment where I said, "Guys, I gotta go. I gotta see what's up with this composing thing. There's a lot coming at me. I gotta a lot coming at me. I feel like I have something to say, or some other people think I have something to say. So I'm gonna try to figure out what that is and do it as best I can. I don't know that I can balance the rigor and demands of the string quartet life, along with this very unknown territory of making a life as a composer. Um, 2 years out, it's spring 2017, 3 years out, yeah. I just had my most recent fuck this moment with the quartet. We all said, fuck this, let's get back together. Like, you're doing great. Seems like the composing thing has got a little bit of, it's kind of rolling along. I was very fortunate to have a lot of really nice things happen in that time that I was away from the quartet, and continue to, have composing projects on the horizon. And it's time for me to come back to the rigor of my heart, which is playing the violin. It's really, that's my heart. I mean, that's where I get that's where all the juice comes from. That's where all the good stuff is generated, is from this sort of visceral relationship that I have with the instrument, and also with the communication, that love that I was talking about, the love of chamber music, the love of that kind of familial interaction that happens among friends and within a chamber, friends that you're making music with. And the Catalyst Quartet is really like a family to me. They're good times, the bad times, the hard times, and we've been through it all. And really, at the heart of it, there's an intense passion in this group, that it's when it's there, it's there, and it's you can't get away from it, and it only exists in this formation of the quartet, and we all sort of came to realize that recently over a very sort of challenging couple of years, in terms of like sort of me finding my way and sort of taking a sort of a kind of sabbatical away from the quartet, and them sort of working through the maintaining the trajectory of the quartet. And so here we find ourselves happily reunited, and sort of picking up where we left off. So it's a little bit of it's a dangerous time because we got a lot of work to do. Not dangerous in a bad way, but just,
Right.
like it's unknown. There's a lot to look at, but already, the fire, the passion, it's already, back on the table, and we got a lot of ideas already kind of flowing that I'm super, super
Oh,
excited about.
cool. And so
So,
like there,
um,
I a lot on Crushing Classical, I talk about career evolution a lot because, you have to go with what's in front of you at the moment and what you're feeling drawn to. And it sounds like that's what you were doing when you decided to leave um, for your composing.
right,
And then so
right.
so they decided to keep on going. Did they get a sub for you, or was it, or were you?
Those, if you ever get a chance to talk with,
Sure.
maybe we'll have another one with the group, another with the group, but they're hard hitters, heavy hitters. They didn't really miss a beat. Yeah, they continued to go, and had some rotating players with them, and some that stayed longer, some shorter. And they developed, continued to develop the sound of the quartet. Like I said, these are players that continue to reinvent and um, strengthen, their core sound and all this stuff. So they just kept at it like good soldiers. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. So yeah, and I'm just psyched to come back and get back in that stuff, get back
Yeah.
in that hard work.
So I was going to ask you what your next big goal is. It might be what you're talking about now, getting back to work with the quartet. But do you have anything big on the horizon coming up with composing?
Sure. Well, I mean, I have, yeah, I've got a couple things on the docket for composing. I'm working on a big project, wonderful project with um, a theater company in Toronto called Volcano Theater. We're doing a readaptation of Scott Joplin's opera Treemonisha, which has only been performed a handful of times. He never got to see it performed himself, and I'm working on an adaptation of the story and of the music, and so we're creating a new arrangement actually of the opera with a small cast of 8 and about 7 or 8 musicians, and that's a long-term project that'll go up through until the middle of next year. I mean, as far as long-term goals, you know. Um, I I really, it's kind of hard because I'm kind of right now,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm at this crossroads. So I'm really looking at
Uh-huh.
what's right in front of me right now. Um, and and it's like I said, getting back into my playing in the way that um, I would like, and breathing some new life into the projects that I do have on the table, hopefully by way of, exercising my playing more. And in the future it'd be great. I really love. I like I said, I went to film. I did film scoring at NYU. It was my graduate degree. I love the idea of writing for film. So my hopes set on that at some point. It's something I would really love to
Yeah.
come back to. So yeah, and I feel like I don't know. I have I think my music, when I write music, concert music even, I think very visually about the piece, and sort of there's not necessarily an explicit story, but a kind of like narrative kind of feeling to it and thought behind it. Just that's what keeps me going
Yeah. So it
a
sounds like
lot
your
of the
style would
time
really match up
when
with
I.
film.
Yeah. I feel an affinity that may have an affinity for it, and I want to check it out as soon as I can. With all the stuff I got going on, but things happen sometimes all of a sudden, so I'm ready. I'm ready for anything. Basically, everything
That
keeps
sounds
coming at
great.
me, so just kind
That's awesome. Um,
of okay.
so what
Yeah.
would you say, what is the one habit or behavior you've developed that has made the most difference in your career so far?
Mhm. Um, this is going to sound really silly. I have two, but eating a very well balanced breakfast has been really important in my life. Like starting my day out. No, seriously, I'll take like a whole morning. I'll wake up extra early just to have like a long leisurely breakfast every day. And also like, and while I'm doing my long breakfast, I have a journal, and then I just kind of jot down what it is that think I'm going to be doing for the day or for the week, and sort of general, um, general kind of goals. So I take a long morning, yeah, and I really just take my time, easing into what it is that
That
I
sounds
want
like
to
a nice
accomplish for the
ritual.
day.
So many people.
Yeah. Some mornings it works, and some
Right. Yeah,
mornings
that
it
makes
can't.
sense. But usually you think of that only you can do that on Sunday, but it's nice that you have that in the morning. Cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like, well, yeah, because like I said, my schedule is very erratic, actually. So I have a lot of, I do end up having more time for that kind of thing right now. So
That's cool. Are you a
yeah,
coffee drinker?
luckily. I am. I've got my cup of coffee right here. Yeah.
Important.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and who in the classical world inspires you? And tell me why in one sentence.
The violinist Patricia Kopenskaya is someone who I'd heard of her and just heard her perform with the LA Philharmonic, and so she's like right in the forefront of my mind as just she performed the Prokofiev second violin concerto as if it was a
Wow.
completely new piece of music, and I that to me I've always had so many. I've recently been having this thought, like, what is the point of playing these older works over and over and over again? If it's just this, the same, not the same, if your interpretations aren't so different from one another, it's just really about, that one violinist and their personal style. And um, Patricia Kopenskaya seems to think like a composer when she's performing, and I really just appreciate the freshness and the risk that she takes in her interpretation. And it was extremely refreshing to hear that piece, and it sounded like a completely different piece, but it also sounded like something Prokofiev uh, wouldn't mind. I don't know. I can't imagine that he would be turned off by that level of commitment to the interpretation. And anyway, so that's not one sentence.
No,
That's a lot of
nobody can
sentences.
do it in one sentence, so
But
that's okay. But
yeah,
but that makes me want to check
yeah,
out that performance. And you're an incredible. You could write about performances, because that just the what you just said makes me go, what is different about this person? I have to check her out. So that's fascinating, and it sounds really inspiring that someone could. Because I've thought the same thing myself. I've thought, there's millions of, I mean, not millions, you know what I mean, but like hundreds of people who want to be violin soloists or whatever instrument. Usually it's violin mostly, because there's so many, and piano. And you go like, okay, so we're just going to keep playing this standard repertoire. What makes you different from the next person? So
mhm, right,
yeah,
exactly.
that's great.
Yeah, and so yeah, no, she was super inspiring. I was like, okay, this is okay. Like, we can keep playing these pieces as long as somebody puts some
Exactly.
thought into it.
That's fascinating. I wonder what she would say about that if you got to ask her those questions too.
I don't know. I hope I get to meet her one day. She seems
That's cool.
pretty cool person.
Were you
She
in
has a funky
LA,
style
or
too. Really
were they in New
funky.
York?
Sorry, did I say LA Phil? I meant London Phil.
Oh,
They played in
London.
New
Okay.
York, the London Philharmonic. Sorry, they played it.
London.
They were visiting New York, yeah, and they played London Philharmonic. Sorry, yeah. So they
Awesome.
were in New York. Yeah.
Great. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for being on Crushing Classical today. had such a fun time getting to know who you are and getting to talk to you on this podcast. So this has been great.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Same here. It's been
Awesome.
great to have
Thanks.
a chat.
And to
Thank
my
you.
listeners, if you're enjoying Crushing Classical, please write a review on iTunes and come join the conversation on Facebook at facebook.com/Crushing Classical. And I'm on Instagram too at Crushing Classical. So I'll see you there. Thanks so much, Jessie. Bye.
Thank you, Tracy.